Okay. Thanks so much for tuning in the trade setup. I'm Neeraj Shah. Good morning. And let's take stock of the situation. Here's what's happening in the markets. The US markets ended, how do I say? Well, the Dow was at record highs, yes, but that was just about a 0.43 kind of a percent kind of a move. And the Nasdaq actually ended very, very flat. And the futures, as we speak, are also trading very, very flat. So I would actually suggest no big cues. You can hear the headline that Dow was at all-time highs, but didn't really make a material difference, to be honest. In fact, what we're seeing, if you really want to look at all-time highs, is what's happening to Bitcoin, right? Because by virtue of what's happening to the reflation trade, I think the moves around Bitcoin are actually getting a bit more pronounced. There's this chart in a Bloomberg story which shows how the movement in cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in particular has actually started back once with the reflation trade coming up. So keep an eye out for the cryptocurrencies. They are actually trading really remarkably well. Um, what's happening with Asia and the SGX Nifty? That's the other point that we need to watch out for. Well, they'll come up on your screen, both Asia and the SGX Nifty, and you will see maybe flattish kind of moves anticipated, so nothing too dramatic out there. Can we get the MOV function on the screen and just try and see what happened in trade yesterday? Okay, this is what Asia and the SGX Nifty did, which is fine. Now let's just look at the MOV function. And this is essentially the long and short of what happened in trade yesterday. You don't need me to tell you this, right? 92 advances to 409 declines. And largely the stocks that declined very, very strongly. And that was the main culprit in trade. So the trade setup for today, well, I think it's difficult to call a bottom. Whether this is bottomed out, I spoke to a fair degree of informed people who've been in the markets for a really long time, have the experience of watching such cycles, and all of them believe that after the 2-day shakeout, maybe the shakeout is done. But whether or not it is a bottom, don't quite know. Also, markets are witnessing continuing outperformance of the financials over the other large caps, and that's to an extent reflected by the high degree of the pickup in the credit growth. And I think the extant long positioning in IT is acting as a bit of a resistance for outperformance in the reaction to the results. Yeah, we've now seen that despite LTTS coming out with a very good set of numbers, because LTI had come out with good numbers, and in the stocks like Emphasis, LTTS, etc., they were already fairly degree of long positions. Some of those got unwound in trade, and as a result of which, despite very strong performance and upping of guidance, also you didn't see LTTS really have a great day. Let's see what happens to Emphasis. The numbers are today. So that's the set of things that I was trying to talk about. In fact, speaking of numbers today, there are 2 nifty names and a bunch of very important mid-sized names that all of us should keep an eye out for. So Asian Paints and JSW Steel constituted 2 index names which everybody will be watching out for. And besides those 2, there is Emphasis, a high flyer, IEX, a high flyer. There is Concord, which could be interesting. IIFL Securities, especially after what ISEC and Angel Broking have done. I think IIFL Securities remains in focus. Indian Hotels remains in focus. Also, there is IndiaMart, Intermesh, and Lemon Tree Hotels. So all of these would certainly remain in focus. So the results today are the key ones to watch out for. These are the names that everybody should be keeping an eye out for. Also, stocks in the F&O ban, I think the list largely remains unchanged, but Tata Park enters into the ban. So Lnd Finance Holdings, post numbers, as well as Tata Park enter into the F&O ban, and BHEL exits from the F&O ban. But this is essentially the list. There were 9 stocks yesterday. BHEL got out, Lnd Finance Holdings and Tata Park entered into the F&O ban. So those are the ones also to monitor in the session. Keep in mind, the IRCTC continues to stay in the ban. What are stocks to watch out for? Some numbers that everybody should be keenly watching out for. Havells, the numbers were much ahead of estimates. But just look at the consolidated numbers on a YOY basis. No, let's stick to Havells first, then we'll get to Angel Broking. Havells, the revenues were up 32% at 3,238 crores versus 2,459 crores. Never mind, even if the graphics are not the viewers, just listen to me. Revenues were up 32%. Margins came off a little bit, but the net profit was down about 7%. But compared to what was anticipated, I think Havells did a bit better, and therefore maybe the street would be enthused by those numbers. Okay, maybe angel broking. We do have the graphics. Let's get angel broking up. Okay, this is Havells. Now let's move on to angel broking. Angel broking, the gross addition in client base was about 1.3 million clients versus 1.2 million clients in Q1 FY22. So both ISEC as well as angel broking have added clients on a quarter-on-quarter basis, which is a good part. For angel broking, sequentially, total income was up about 13.4%, EBITDA was up about 10%, and PAT was up about 10.6%. So decent performance on a YY basis, obviously much better than than what was there a year ago as well. I would classify these as good numbers, and if the market doesn't really buckle down under too much of pressure, angel broking could well be a stock to watch out for. Remember, it had corrected about 6% in trade yesterday, so it's an interesting one to monitor. Some other stocks in focus include a Hathway Cable, wherein the numbers look slightly dismal. PAT down 64%, margins at 19.9 versus 27.9%. So those numbers didn't look all that great. Shoppers Stop looked okay, EBITDA gain versus a loss, and the net loss reduced by over 90%, just about a 3 crore loss versus I think a 97 crore loss in the corresponding quarter last year. So Shopper Stop numbers pretty strong. There is Arihant Superstructure numbers, wherein there was a PAT of 13 crores versus a loss of 1 crore. In fact, for the small cap company, the whole of H1 has been strong. I think the exit rates for H2 look okay. So maybe it's a stock that could do reasonably okay today. We haven't mentioned it, but Lnd Finance Holdings as well as Tata Communications, both were interesting. Lnd Finance Holdings, the PPOP was materially lower than estimates on account of a one-off. And in case of Tata Communication, the profit after tax was 425 crores versus consensus estimates of 320 crores. So I think Tata Communication is one more stock that maybe you keep an eye out for in terms of a reaction. And I think Jindal Stainless Hisar, which has commissioned new capacity with the total precision step capacity now up over 2x from what it was. And therefore, Jindal Stainless could also be stock in focus. Some brokerage notes include, I want to focus on Jubilant FoodWorks. Because some of you might see the Goldman note on Jubilant, which has said it's a sell with a target price of 1539 because they believe that the volumes per store decline in by mid-teens during Q2. And despite the target prices moving up, based on the valuation that they have, the target price is 1539. Now, the point is, I'm highlighting these three notes just to tell you that don't get swayed by one brokerage house view. Try and look at the consensus and build your own opinion, if you will. Because if Goldman believes it's a sell, Motilal believes it's a buy with the target price of 4870 because they are saying that the result is better than expected and there is immense growth opportunity. Or Morgan Stanley, which is maintaining the overweight with the target price of 5,000 and saying that the recent correction could be a good opportunity for long-term investors to engage. So, I mean, it's pretty interesting. Don't form your view just on the basis of one brokerage or a headline brokerage. Also keep in mind, viewers, I think Goldman is negative India consumption for a while now. So they're negative Jubilant FoodWorks. They've been negative Asian Paints for a while. I remember a sell call when Asian Paints was at 1600 that the stock will reach 1100. We all know what's happened to Asian Paints since then. So consumption, maybe don't just look at Goldman alone. Maybe hear their arguments. I'm not suggesting one way or the other that Goldman analyst is wrong, right, good, bad. I'm just saying look at the consensus before forming a view or taking a call on a stock for a trade in particular. There's also a house view on Tata Motors, I think, by CLSA or one more house, which is fairly optimistic. And viewers, watch out. A bunch of stocks have probably had a healthy correction. Some stocks fell without any apparent reason yesterday, and you could well see some smart money starting to nibble into some of those as well, because the fundamentals of some of those have remained unchanged. So it might be an interesting next couple of days. Today's the weekly expiry, of course, but interesting next couple of days because there are a bunch of results and a bunch of stocks which have fallen, which might actually see a bit of a perking up. By the way, yesterday it was, for example, not all bad in banking or specialty chemicals. If you just look at the list of stocks which saw some buying interest, while Navin Fluorine, Deepak Nitrite, and a bunch of specialty chemical stocks came off. Vinati Organics saw buying. I mean, there's a whole list of names which saw some fairly decent delivery-based buying. Includes a Vinati Organics, includes a Union Bank of India, includes an Equitas holding. So a bunch of those stocks could be very interesting names to monitor. And last but not the least, viewers, yeah, this is the list. Metropolis, Vinati Organics, Airtel was up 4%, Union Bank of India up about 5%, and fairly decent delivery-based buying. The standout really for me was Vinati. Amidst all the carnage in the specialty chemical space, this one did reasonably okay, so do watch out. And last but not the least, viewers, what stood out from me was what's happening and what a destination companies all over the world are believing India could be. Apparently, this is a Reuters note, but Tesla has urged Prime Minister Modi's office to slash import taxes on electric vehicles before it enters the market. But they've also put in a request for a meeting between Elon Musk and Prime Minister Modi. Tesla making its intentions very clear, not that it's just happened now. It just shows the vibrancy of the Indian market and how everybody wants a piece of it, of the great Indian consumer, of you and of me. That's it, viewers. For the trade setup today. Be careful if you're trading, but a lot of very smart money tells me that maybe the carnage that we've seen in the last couple of days might ebb a little bit, and I think a few traders could do with that. Thanks so much for tuning in today.